and 3.5 times more likely than non-Indigenous women to be victim survivors of sexual violence. Research suggests that certain populations are more likely to experience sexual assault, including people who are homeless, have disability, identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, or gender diverse, or have intersex variations, have previously been victims of sexual assault at any point throughout life. Breaking it down by age, almost 1 in 5 Australian women have experienced sexual violence, and more than half have experienced sexual harassment since they were 15 years old. At least 1 in 20 men have experienced sexual violence, and 1 in 4 have experienced sexual harassment since age 15. That's a lot of Australians who have been subjected to sexual violence and harassment since at least the time they were in year 8 or 9, before they could even get their learner driver's permit. And before that age, at least 1 in 6 women and 1 in 9 men have been physically or sexually abused. The Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse revealed just how vast the scale of sexual offending against children is, and has been for decades, in this country. These numbers only reflect those who have been able to report their experiences, something which can be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, for many. Given the extent to which sexual violence and harassment is chronically underreported, we know there is a whole lot of icebergs still below the surface. The only thing worse than these numbers is that they have hardly changed for generations. If anything, the numbers get worse over time. This is not new, although we may be newly alive to it. Sexual violence can be ruinous. Sexual violence, sexual harassment, and negative sexual experiences carry significant health, social, and economic cost, and can have a devastating impact on individuals, their families, and communities. Long-term physical and emotional health, the capacity to undertake education, contribute to society, and otherwise lead a fulfilling life, can be severely affected, and the incidence of premature death increases. It is a very dark and dangerous thing, and yet it is a very ordinary thing. It is not overstating it to say sexual violence is ubiquitous. On every street, in every school, workplace, playground, train carriage, and bus, there are any number of survivors. Survivors of sexual violence are not some other people separate from us. They are us. And so are their perpetrators. By the time I was speaking to these Year 12 students, the public spotlight had been turned onto sexual violence and harassment with a new glare. Although survivors have been speaking up for generations, including First Nations people, people of colour, people with disabilities, and others whose stories are rarely given a platform, in 2021, Australia seemed to turn its full attention to the perpetration of sexual violence. It was colliding with our power structures in historic and symbolic ways. In mid-2020, an explosive report revealed allegations that a former High Court judge had sexually harassed numerous women during his tenure. Between then and May 2021, a sexual abuse survivor had been named Australian of the Year, and a petition of current and recent students sharing their experiences of sexual violence, even before they left school, often at the hands of their schoolmates, and calling for better consent education had gone viral, collecting thousands of testimonies. There was widespread media coverage of the petition, with intense public interest in what it revealed about sexual violence in this country. It felt like the community consciousness had, finally, been brought to a crossroads. How were we to answer the scourge of sexual violence? On stage in that auditorium full of school kids, I squint in the hot lights, which add to my feeling of being scrutinised. I feel my hands wrap around the sides of the lectern, as is my involuntary habit, and I begin. Who thinks I'm here to scare you straight? Having heard that I'm a criminal lawyer who prosecutes alleged sex offenders, I know most of the students will